Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1985 Asian rom-com film, Affectionately Yours. Now, this is a film that is pretty obscure. It's not that well known even among fans of Hong Kong or Chinese cinema, because I don't really see that many reviews of it online. And after watching the film, I could definitely see why this is one that's been, for the most part, forgotten about, because it's pretty forgettable. I don't think that it's a bad film. It's just a very below average, generic, bland rom com. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, though, I would like to give a special shout out to Ryan for requesting this review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The links to all three are in the video description down below, and I will try to get your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, Affectionately Yours is directed by Ying Wong. And Ying Wong, who's also known as Wong Ying Kit, depending on where you look, he did a lot of acting prior to directing. And one of the films he actually acted in was Men Behind the Sun, or Man Behind the Sun, which is honestly one of the most disturbing and genuinely intense films I've ever seen. It's a really rough film to watch, and the complete and total opposite in terms of its tone in comparison to this fluffy, lighthearted rom-com. I find it to be kind of interesting that his filmography includes a film like that, but also includes directing a film like this. Directing wise, his direction is passable. It's not what I would consider to be super dynamic or interesting, but it's not particularly poor either. It's not a film that features really bad directing, but it also doesn't feature direction that's really that impressive or that noteworthy either. It's just the kind of film where the framing is fine, and so is most of the camera angles and other camera techniques the director utilizes throughout, but there's not really a lot of extra added pizzazz or flash or flair or style. It's just pretty one note. And a lot of rom-coms tend to look that way, I've noticed. That out of honestly all of the genres, the rom-com is one that tends to really have a lot of very generic notes to it visually. And I think that's honestly kind of done by design in order for the film to appeal to like the widest possible audience, so it doesn't alienate people too much with too many risks that are taken visually. But it also makes it for a genre of film that can be kind of boring to watch in a multitude of different ways, and one of them is definitely how they look visually, because they definitely tend to have the same gloss, the same sheen, and there really isn't much of a variation. Uh, so for the genre, it fits and it's fine, because a lot of these films are really carried more by the plot or by the characters or by the cast more than they are by the director. There's a reason why you could basically hire anybody to do a Hallmark rom-com movie, and you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference between one director from the next, because it's that kind of genre where the whole nature of it really doesn't tend to provide a lot of visionary filmmakers. There's some exceptions where some filmmakers try to do something a little bit out of the box. And honestly, when a filmmaker does that, I really appreciate that, especially in the genre of the rom com. But most of the time, that's not really the case. So the fact that the direction here is passable is acceptable to me. The screenplay is by Barry Wong and Clarence Yip, and the screenplay is easily the weakest and honestly the worst aspect of this movie because the direction is passable. I think the cast actually is not that bad either. It's the script that really lets everything down and makes it, in a lot of ways, very painfully generic and predictable. And also, not really that endearing, which is what you're really looking for out of a rom com. You want to feel endeared by the characters or by the love story. And I really don't feel that way because of the way that things play out. It starts out with this man named Alan, this young man named Alan who is at a street market and he buys a tub, and he bought the tub in order to give it to his girlfriend. And he goes back to his apartment and he thinks he's going to meet his girlfriend there and give her the tub, but she's gone. She's nowhere to be found. And after a frantic search, he then sees a note on the wall that says that she's broken up with him. Understandably distraught, he goes to the bar and gets drunk. He winds up hanging out with his buddy, Ruddy, and Ruddy's buddy, and they get plastered. And because he's so intoxicated he can't even think straight, Alan agrees to get married to Ruddy's sister, Connie. And so Connie, Connie and Alan, sorry, my brain had a bit of a fart there. So Connie and Alan, they wind up getting married the next day, or maybe a few days later, in some ceremony at a restaurant. And then they decide to go on their honeymoon in Japan. And you can already tell that Connie and Alan aren't really meant to be together, and they don't really love each other. And for me, the whole act of them getting married is really where this film starts to fall apart. Now, I don't know if this is a cultural thing, though. Maybe it's one of those things where there is no engagement. You just get married. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is between Asian, Hong Kong, Chinese cultures in terms of getting married versus what's going on in America. If anybody knows any differences, feel free to let me know in the comments. But I'm basing things off of my knowledge of marriage, and the fact that there's no engagement at all and they just get married, and it really affects the quality of the story to me. It affects how I think about the characters as well, because it makes things have a more negative slant to them. Because I have a very hard time rooting for Alan to win the advances or the love of Atsuko when he's married. Like that's it's something that I just can't really get over, to be honest. Like he's committing adultery like within like the first week of his marriage with Connie. You have the whole stuff with Connie and Alan and them being an odd couple, and they have a bunch of shenanigans at the airport. Connie's camera gets lost. They wind up getting on the plane to Japan. They get off the plane and they miss their bus to get to the hotel, so they have to wait in the cold for a cab. They get the cab and they get to the hotel, but then they can't get in the hotel because the reservations are booked, so they sleep in the lobby. And the next day, after they've settled in and they've got a good amount of rest, they decide to go shopping. Well, Connie decides to go shopping. And she just spends pretty much almost every last cent that this poor guy Alan has on him, or close to it. Like, not every last, doesn't make him broke, but spends a lot of money on gifts and baubles and clothes. And you definitely kind of sympathize with him in some way at this point, because this is before he starts cheating on her. So you're just like, man, that really blows. So like this, all of his money is being blown, and you could tell he doesn't really love her, but he doesn't want to get a divorce yet, I guess. I don't know, and like it's just awkward. But the script does a good job at first making you sympathize with him because of just how bad of a fit Connie is for Alan, and how much she's using him as a sugar daddy, basically. But when Connie is going shopping for a kimono, she runs. Well, she doesn't run into Atsuko. Alan runs into Atsuko because Atsuko is the saleswoman who's trying to sell the kimono to Connie, and that's when it's love at first sight for Alan and Atsuko. And then Alan just continues to court Atsuko throughout the majority of the story at this point in various different ways. And he lies to Connie about what he's doing and where he's going, says things like, oh, I'm donating blood for a friend, and doing all these different things, but really he's just going to meet Atsuko. And he's even meeting with her parents, and Atsuko's uncle doesn't want anything to do with this guy, doesn't trust him. And you can tell that Atsuko and Alan are really starting to fall for one another, and they are, in a lot of ways, a better fit for each other. And I do think that the script does a good job making them really seem like a very cute couple. But the problem is he's still married. So it's just very difficult for me to get behind all of this. Instead of him stringing along this poor woman, Connie, for such a long time, why don't you just get it over with early? Just, all right, I met this other girl. This isn't working out. Connie, let's get a divorce. Let's get an annulment. And he doesn't really do that until way, way late in the game, after he's already went on multiple dates with Atsuko, and really spent all this extra money on Connie, and done all this extra stuff in terms of these crazy wild lies that he's providing to Connie. And he doesn't really have a sure thing in Atsuko yet either, because he doesn't really have the blessing of her uncle. Her mother seems to be okay with him being with Atsuko, but not the uncle. He winds up leaving Japan without either girl, because he breaks up with Connie, gets a divorce with her, and then goes back to Hong Kong, and he, I guess, sells his flower business, or gives the deed to Connie, so he can smooth things over and finalize the divorce. And then he goes back to Japan, and then he finds out where Connie's parents are. I mean, not Connie's parents, where Atsuka's parents are. And he tries to stay there, but they won't let him stay there. So he just stays out in a tent in the snow. And then his tent get lights on fire, and then the uncle reluctantly lets him stay in their home. And then, well, actually, no, that's not what happens. His tent gets lit on fire. He stays overnight in the cold, and then Atsuko's mother has like a maid or something that lets him know where Atsuko is. And so he goes to try to find Atsuko. He finds out that she actually is on her way to a kendo class. And to be honest, that's like the most interesting part of this script to me, is the fact that Atsuko is into kendo, and so you have a whole bit where Alan goes into a kendo class and he winds up having to fight the kendo teacher, and eventually he does get the attention of Atsuko, and they reconnect and they have this adorable snowball fight, I have to be honest, afterwards. And he winds up going to like I think it's a dinner. Yeah, a dinner at Atsuko's parents' house. Um, and I keep saying it. I thought it was her father, but it's her uncle apparently. Guess the father's not in the picture, and so the uncle still isn't really wanting Alan to be with Atsuko. He's trying to do all these different things to scare him away, but Alan is so determined to be with Atsuko that he is even willing to turn down 100,000 yen, and he's like, "Oh, I'll give you 100,000 if you just leave, and never come back." And you could pay all your debts, you could do all this other stuff, just forget about her, forget about Atsuko. But Alan's like, no, I love her, and here's two plane tickets. If you change your mind and do the right thing and let fate decide, you'll give her the other plane ticket. And the movie basically ends with Alan getting on the plane uh, to Hong Kong from Japan, and Atsuko meets him there on the plane, and they sit next to each other and they embrace, and then end credits. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty predictable. There's really not any surprises there, and the writers either ran out of steam or ran out of ideas, or they just really didn't care anymore. They just wanted to end this because it's definitely kind of a awkward, weird place to end the film, to be honest. But yeah, if it doesn't sound like much based on my synopsis, well, there's a reason for that, because it isn't much. There's not much surprises. There's not much intrigue when it comes to the plot. The characters are very, in my opinion, poorly developed or paper thin. The motivations are a little off when it comes to the characters too, and I just can't get behind the whole adultery thing as if it's like cute and charming. I'm like, you're cheating on your wife, dude. Like, you're kind of a douche. Like, you should never have gotten married to her anyway after you were drunk, but you decided to commit to it, so you're not even gonna give it like a week. You're gonna be cheating on your wife like that early on into the marriage, and this is your protagonist, and it's just a crippling flaw to me when it comes to the plot. It's very hard for me to root for the guy because he's a cheater. That's just my thoughts on the script. Now, when it comes to the cast, like Alan Tam, I don't think he's terrific or anything, but I thought he was, solid enough as Alan. It's not his fault the character is written as fairly unlikable because of his actions. Uh, I felt he definitely had a certain amount of charm to him, and I didn't think he was that boring of a lead. And I definitely feel that Atsuko Yamakazi is pretty good here too, and I think she and Alan actually made a cute couple. If it was a better script, then and this might have actually been a little a gem, but that's not the case at all, because it's not a particularly compelling plot, and it's also not particularly that funny either when it comes to like the comedy aspects. But any sort of like maybe smirk I might have gotten really comes from these two, Alan Tam and Atsuko Yamakazi. Uh, Maria Chung Wai-Bing as Connie. It's an okay performance, but she's honestly kind of just irritating to me more than anything else. And there's not really a lot to say about Eric Tsang Chai Wai or Billy Lau Nam Kwong as Ruddy and Ruddy's buddy. Um, they're only on screen for maybe like a few minutes. But and all in all, the cast is not bad. Like the performances are fairly natural, laid back, and kind of fun. If the film had a better script, then the cast would have had more to work with, and the film would have been better in a multitude of ways, if you ask me. There's really not a lot I can say about the cinematography or the editing or any of that stuff. It's also fairly adequate. The music, the score isn't much, but I like some of the songs. I like the opening theme, for instance, the opening song. I don't know the name of it, but it's actually pretty catchy. Has good rhythm to it, good beat, a good overall structure. And I do like that there's like an instrumental version of it that's also utilized during different montages throughout the film. But yeah, I really don't know what else to say about Affectionately Yours except if you're into Asian rom-coms, I guess this is something that you could watch to pass the time. But if you're not really into that kind of thing, there's not a lot here. And I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Or really wouldn't recommend going all out or going out of your way to try to find it either. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Affectionately Yours. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.